That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, this is going to be a continuation video of the past two that I made. Really hope y'all have been enjoying the videos up to this point. I know if y'all have, y'all know that I've been going through and giving exact prices of where these players are being valued at the moment. But in this video, I'm going to have too many players to do that with. If I wanted to do that with this many players, I'm going to have to go through and make pretty much an hour-long video. So instead, what I'm going to do is I have every single Dynasty startup posted underneath the drafts with buy-in tab on our Discord chat. So if you want to go to Discord, join. I mean, completely free. Don't even think you need to put in an email or anything. You just have to have the app, or you don't even have to have the app. You just pull it up on your computer. That's what I do. But you can look, follow around. You can look at where these players were being drafted before the NFL draft, where they're being valued now, and where they're really rising to. I'm going to go through and also just keep in mind, I'm going to give some context to these players and kind of say where I am valuing them and what price point that I will be trying to buy them at. But let's jump in. We're going to go from the top guys to the really bottom tier sleeper guys that you're going to be able to get at the end of your drafts. But we're going to start with the number one wide receiver for redraft 2020. And I know it's crazy to say, but Davante Adams, I think that he is going to be my wide receiver one in redraft for 2020. I think I'm going to have him ahead of Michael Thomas. I think Michael Thomas will still be my wide receiver one in Dynasty. And this isn't an original take that I came up with on my own. Y'all know I always love to give credit, and I hate that most Dynasty podcasters will just go around, listen to 20 podcasts, and then kind of just repeat whatever everyone else said. And that's how we get that offseason hype machine going. And that's how we get certain players to really get overvalued. But I heard this on the Evan Silva's podcast. And yeah, Davante Adams, wide receiver one, you look at his market share for 2019. You look at how that projects over to 2020. He's a guy that's going to be looking at a Michael Thomas level target share. And if he's getting that from Aaron Rodgers, and if he's getting that really as a red zone weapon, Davante Adams, what he can do in the red zone is better than pretty much any other NFL wide receiver. And that's where he's going to excel. So if we're seeing him get a similar target share to a Michael Thomas, and I think it's completely possible because if we look at this team, they bring in A.J. Dillon. They also bring in no wide receiver of consequence. So the wide receiver two on this team is going to be either Allen Lazard, MVS, Equanimeous St. Brown. I mean, are we really excited about any of those guys commanding any amount of targets on this team? I think it's going to be completely funneled to Davante Adams. I think Davante Adams is a better red zone wide receiver than Michael Thomas. So I think we could be looking at a similar target number, and we could be looking at more red zone targets for Davante Adams. They're going to be right there in the same tier for me. Obviously, I'm probably going to end up having to draft Michael Thomas ahead of Davante Adams just because that's how ADP works. And if I want to get shares of these players, I'll be able to get Davante Adams at the end of the first round, and I'm going to have to push the button on Michael Thomas a little bit earlier. But I think they're in the same tier, and I think that Davante Adams is going to provide a clear value for anyone trying to win their league in 2020. Now, let's go to a sneakier position, a guy that is kind of off a lot of people's radars. And I've been advocating for going out and buying this guy this entire offseason because if we look at his numbers in 2019 with what he did with Matthew Stafford, I mean, it just does not line up with his current price. And this is Marvin Jones. Now, especially in these flock best ball leagues, I think this is the perfect spot to go out and get him. But even if you're in a dynasty league where you can start up to about 5 wide receivers, say you have 3 wide receivers in your starting lineup and you have 2 additional flex spots, that's going to be the perfect spot to go out there and trade for Marvin Jones. Because right now he's being valued in dynasty as like a wide receiver 5. And I think in redraft at least, he's going to be a wide receiver 2. Because if you kind of expand what he was doing with Matthew Stafford over the past couple seasons, it's really solid. I mean, there's no other word to describe it. He does have his blow-up weeks, and he does have his weeks that he kind of trails off. But I've said multiple times in this video, I mean, and I've heard other people say on podcasts, I've seen studies about it, consistency in fantasy football does not matter. If you're going out there and you're going to score 30 points one week and then 5 points the next week, in my opinion, that's the same exact thing as scoring 17 points 2 weeks in a row. I know that does not make sense for most people playing fantasy football because they all have that vivid memory of, oh, I would have won my matchup if only Marvin Jones would have scored more than 4 points. Yeah, but you completely forget the week you only won because Marvin Jones dropped 30 points. So consistency is a little overrated. I'm going to be going out there and trying to buy Marvin Jones where I can. Now let's get into a trio of wide receivers, all on one team, a team that I think many people expected to go wide receiver in the second round, but this is the Houston Texans. Right now, the Houston Texans are looking like their starting wide receivers are going to be Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and Randall Cobb. And I think the best buy out of this group, in my opinion, is actually Randall Cobb, because Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks are fantastic NFL wide receivers. I think they are criminally underrated for what they do with their NFL team. If you look at the offensive efficiency for really any time they're on the field versus off the field, it's completely different. It's night and day, and this is because they are elite at stretching the field, keeping the safeties back, and opening things up for other players on this team. And I think Randall Cobb is going to be the guy that benefits from this situation, because Randall Cobb is going to be running those routes over the middle of the field, near the line of scrimmage, and soaking up targets, and he's going to be the guy that costs the least amount of all these other players. So Randall Cobb, great buy in Dynasty and in redraft, and same thing with Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, just to a lesser extent. Now, let's go to another wide receiver that I really love. We're going to hit two of them in a row. Christian Kirk of the Arizona Cardinals. There were trade rumors that he was going to be moved during the NFL draft. Never really made sense to me. I know that he disappointed a lot of Dynasty and fantasy owners last season. I don't think it was necessarily his fault. We saw what he was dealing with, and we saw the rookie quarterback play in a new system. I think we're going into year two, of this system, and they have DeAndre Hopkins, who on most teams would really lower the expectation for the wide receiver 2 there for me. But we know with this system that they are looking to spread the ball out. Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury do not like to focus in on one wide receiver. They want to spread the ball out to all their weapons. So Christian Kirk is actually a wide receiver 2 behind an alpha that I'm actually intrigued in, and I think that we could see him have a massive bounce back season. Now let's go to a wide receiver that everyone hates. Most people are going to turn off the video once I mention this name, but Corey Davis. Yes, I know the Tennessee Titans just declined his 5th-year option. That was no surprise to anybody. When you saw where he got drafted in the NFL draft, it would have been expensive to pay him that 5th-year option. They are going to decline it, and they are going to evaluate what he can do this season and really decide if he's going to be on the team next year. But if we're looking ahead for this season, this team I really thought was a contender to go out there and draft a wide receiver early in this draft. We saw how many teams did that in round 1 and round 2. I thought the Titans were going to be in that mix. But by passing on a wide receiver in a draft that was completely loaded at the position, it shows that I think they're willing to give Corey Davis one more chance. He's going to have a role on this team. And I know he was not able to really get any sort of opportunity last season, but at the same time, he is a player that his efficiency has risen every single year of his career. And now he's stepping into a role. Maybe this Tennessee Titans offense regresses to the mean just a little bit. Maybe they have to throw the ball more. And maybe Corey Davis can be a wide receiver 3 on this team. Now, let's go to the biggest 2 winners, in my opinion, this year of the NFL draft, Devante Parker and Preston Williams. Not only does this team refuse to take a wide receiver in the 1st or 2nd round, but they go out there, get quite possibly the most talented quarterback in the NFL draft in Tua Tagovailoa. So Devante Parker, Preston Williams are skyrocketing up dynasty rankings, and for good reason. Now, another wide receiver that people are going to turn off the video if they haven't already with Corey Davis, but N'Keal Harry. I know, I don't own N'Keal Harry on a single dynasty team. I advocated really strongly that nobody drafted him last offseason. I was saying draft Josh Jacobs and Miles Sanders ahead of him, where really N'Keal Harry was almost the consensus 101 or 102. So I never ended up with him. Ended up with a lot of Miles Sanders instead. And I'm actually maybe considering going out and buying N'Keal Harry now, just because he looks like he's slated in to be the wide receiver 1 on this New England Patriots team. And I don't think we can ignore it, just because he has the profile, he has the metrics to back it. And I know he was not able to get on the field year 1, which historically means bad things for his career outlook. But we've seen crazier things than N'Keal Harry breaking out in year 2 in New England. Now, 2 players that I was not high on, I was telling you all to actually go out there and sell them before the NFL draft. But Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard cannot ignore the fact that they are 2 risers. They are looking like they have their roles secured for 2020 and really are just kind of low upside but high floor plays in my opinion. I'm not necessarily going to go out there and aggressively try to trade for them, but they are definitely worth more now than they were before the NFL draft. Now, a sneaky player, Mike Williams. Y'all know I love him. I think he's going to regress. I think his touchdowns will come up in 2020. Yes, his yards per reception will come down, but they bring in Justin Herbert, who is known for his deep ball placement and his deep ball accuracy, and that's exactly where Mike Williams excels on the field. We know that he led all NFL wide receivers in air yards per attempt last season, so he's getting down the field. Phillip Rivers just really had no arm whatsoever last year and was not able to connect with him for really a single deep ball. So Mike Williams, big riser in my opinion. Now we're going to finish it off with a player I own none of. I'm going to go out there and maybe actually try to get him in a lot of these flock leagues. I think he's a perfect guy for a deep starting lineup, especially a best ball league. Jameson Crowder. They go out there, get Denzel Mems. So the personnel on the field for the New York Jets is going to be Denzel Mems, Brashad Perriman, and Jameson Crowder. Similar to the Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb situation, I think that Jameson Crowder is going to benefit from Brashad Perriman and Denzel Mems playing on the outside, stretching the field. Jameson Crowder is going to be the guy running the routes near the line of scrimmage, running the routes over the middle of the field, and he's going to really be able to benefit from the space that Brashad Perriman and Denzel Mems are going to be able to create for him. So I think out of that group, maybe he's the least valuable NFL wide receiver, but we're not drafting for a Madden team. We're not drafting like an NFL GM. We're drafting like a guy who plays fantasy football and wants to win his league. So Jameson Crowder is going to be getting the volume there. He's going to be scoring the fantasy points. But thanks so much, guys. Really hope you all enjoyed the video. Really hope you all got something from it. Sorry I was not able to get y'all pinpoint accuracies of these values of these players, but I mean, there were too many of them. I hope I kind of did a couple of them justice. Hope I convinced y'all to go out there and try to buy a couple of them. I think my biggest buys out of this group of wide receivers would be the super cheap guys in Randall Cobb, Marvin Jones, and Jameson Crowder. But thanks so much, guys, and have a great day.